Hello, I'm Julie. Today I'm excited to be testing out these Artistro acrylic dual tip markers. I'll be swatching all 72 colours and testing out both tips. And then later I'm going to do a proper test on different papers to check things like bleed through and dry time. I'll finish by talking about how I might use these paint pens in my planners and journals. So let's start by looking at the packaging. I'll give a completely honest review. These are an affordable set, quite popular I believe, and so the packaging is fairly basic. On the back we do have all the colour names with different numbers beside them. They are perfect for rocks, glass, wood, paper, though I'll only be trying them out on paper today. So I have already opened these and had a look. Isn't that a wonderful sight? Brings back memories of the 70s as a child, when at Christmas you always used to get a set of felt pens arranged in beautiful colour order. It also says on the box that they are acid-free, non-toxic and water-based. So I'm going to take the pens out. And one of the things I'm noticing straight away is that I don't think it's going to be easy to match the caps to the colours on the back. I believe this is probably light turquoise, although this doesn't really look like that. But we've got three very similar blues here, and then we've got names like powder blue, cerulean, blueberry, deep blue, Patagonia blue, cobalt, and I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to match these up. I don't know how important the pen names are at the end of the day, but as I have this Dymo letter tag, what I'm going to do is make myself some clear labels and number all the pens so that I can later match them, hopefully to the colour names on the box, or if not, make up my own. If you're new to the Dymo labelling machine, you put in some clear tape and you can type in words and numbers. So I've typed out the numbers and I will cut them, and then it is on clear sticky paper, so I can just add them to the pens. If you'd be interested in seeing a demo of that at some point, then do let me know in the comments and I'll try and include that in a future video. I've prepared some swatch pages in my Oopsie-daisy dot grid journal, and I numbered the pens in colour groups and tried to go from roughly dark to light. I'm going to start with the red. Just wanted to show you how the pen actually looks. So it's clearly labelled with brush tip, dot tip, so you know which end you're using. The brush tip is 0.1 to 5 millimeters thickness and the dot is 5 millimeters. So let's begin the swatch. It feels really smooth to write with, and I'm writing a word with the brush tip. High is about all I can fit in, and then repeating that with the dot tip. And I finished with 3 different dots using different pressures. The lids are on quite tight, quite tricky to get off. This one is very juicy. But that's probably a good thing, because it means that the pen is going to last. I don't want to press too hard when I'm drawing the dots, because I did read up a little bit about paint pens and they said that you can damage the tip if you press too hard. So now I've swatched a few, I will probably speed this up so you can see all the different colours. And then we will move on to the paper test. A couple of things to say about the swatching. I don't do brush lettering, so I did find it quite hard to write the word with the brush tip. It was much easier with the dot tip. I don't own many brush pens, but the tips on these are very, very flexible. I thought there was a really good assortment of colours. I was expecting some of the colours to be almost identical, but you can see clear differences in most of the colours. There were a couple of neon colours and also a couple of metallics, a silver and a gold. I don't know why, but there are never many reds in pen packs, so we really only had one red. One thing I did notice was that when I used the different ends, I sometimes got a slightly different colour. You can see it here with this one, and with this one it was really obvious. I actually put to one side all the pens that happened with, and it was quite a lot. And even though these have been stored horizontally, which is how you are meant to store dual-sided pens, I suppose the fact they have to share the paint between the two ends could affect how they write on the page. Whether that happens with all dual tip pens, I don't know. If you've used acrylic pens before, let me know in the comments. But as I said, some of them came out a completely different colour. You don't have to prime these pens and shape them before use, which to me is an advantage because I don't have the patience to do that. But maybe with those pens that you do that with, that ensures a more even colour across both ends. I don't know. As I say, this is my first time using acrylic markers. The paint flowed really well. There weren't any dry pens. This one on the dot side really came out very wet. But because I probably wouldn't be using these for writing small words, mainly for colouring, I don't think that's an issue. This is 160 GSM paper, I believe, and we didn't get any sort of bleed through. But now let's do a test on different papers and see what happens. I've got some Happy Planet filler paper, smooth white card and black card. I'll start with the white card, which is a smooth card, because I understand that is what it performs best on. So I left that 5 seconds and there is a tiny bit of smudging. But I actually thought there was going to be a lot more because it looks really wet on the paper. So this time I shall wait 10 seconds. And we've still got a little bit of smudging. They are meant to be quick drying, but 10 seconds isn't exactly very long. So I'm going to wait 20 seconds this time. And that is dry. So it does take a little while, but 20 seconds in my opinion is not very long for a thick juicy paint pen to dry. I'm going to use the other side now, and I will wait 20 seconds and see if this side will be dry in that time too. I think maybe just a tiny smudge there. I noticed that this is darker. Maybe there is more of the paint in the tip side. I don't see any skipping, and I know the paint is meant to lie on the surface of the paper, but we'll double check. No, there's no bleed through at all on the card. So I'm going to repeat that test for some Happy Planner paper now. I'll use the same colour, and I think since it's unlikely to dry in 5 seconds, I will try 10 seconds and then the 20. I can't really see any smudging there. We'll give it 20 seconds. No smudging at all. I will say that it felt a lot smoother on the card than writing on the Happy Planner paper, but nothing major. For consistency, I will use the other side and give it 20 seconds as well. Then we will check for bleed through. Now, there was a little bit of smudging on that one. I think you can see that it's much darker on this tip. So again, more ink for there to get smudged. I think that one was fine. We'll look at the bleed through on the Happy Planet paper, and there isn't any. So good to know. I have done pen tests before and noticed that the Happy Planet filler paper sometimes performs differently to the Happy Planet planner paper. So when I show you some ideas of how I'm going to use these pens at the end of the video, I will use some regular Happy Planner planner paper. But now let's finish with testing the black card. So that was really, really smooth. However, you can see that the colour doesn't compare to the colours on the white paper and card. It's been absorbed by the paper and it's not very opaque. I'm going to give it a second coat, see if that makes a difference. So it's darker, but still you can see the colour seeping into the paper and there's lots of shadowing. I will try one final coat. Now there are so many different types of card out there. I know in my scrapbooking stash I have lots of different brands and thicknesses. So it's quite difficult to compare. But even with that third coat, the colour is fading. And I have to say, I don't know, because I've not used paint pens before. I was expecting it to be a lot darker after a couple of coats. I do want to do a smudge test. So I will just do it after the one coat and we'll give it 20 seconds. And it seems quite dry after 20 seconds. I can't see any smudging at all. Clearly there you can see the difference between 3 coats and 1 coat. But again, let me know in the comments what your experience of using paint pens on black paper is. I'm not anticipating any bleed through at all because this is card, and no, there isn't. So before I show you how I might be using these pens in my planners and journals, let's do a quick recap. The smoothest writing experience was definitely on the white card. Next, I would say the black card, and finally the Happy Planner paper. There was no bleed through on any of the papers. If you hold this up to the light, then there is a tiny bit of ghosting. You can see the writing through, but no bleed through at all. Colour distribution through each word is very even, but the dot tip came out a little bit darker than the brush tip. You're looking at about 30 seconds drying time to be on the safe side when using these pens. And with the black paper, you will need to do several coats to make the colour really pop on the page. So now that we've seen how these pens perform, I'm going to talk about some of the ways I'm going to be using these pens in my planner and journal. These are not new ideas. They are all things that I've seen Mary Ellen, Planning with Bumble, do over the years as I've watched her channel since I started planning. I think I'll use the dot tip for 3 main purposes. The most obvious one being to make bullet points in your planner. Do take care not to press too hard, as you can damage the tip. Because I find these easier to write with than the brush tip, I think I will be more likely to use these if I want to do any words in my planner. And for drawing boxes. I feel like I would have better control with this tip than the brush tip. You can also use the dot tip for extra decoration, like making little confetti at the top of the page or in little areas of your planner. Great for if you're making a party themed spread. I may use the brush tip for drawing boxes, but let's have a go and compare the two, because I do feel like the thickness of stroke is harder to control with these, as well as the straightness of the line. Not too bad, but I felt more confident with that one. I think the main use I will get from the brush tip is when I want to colour in, to add a little bit of decoration to my pages. The other thing I think the brush tip is good for is for drawing little areas in your planner for you to write on, and you could colour code different things. So I can see myself using it for that. I imagine you need to pick the lighter colours, but let's grab a Muji and see how writing on the top goes. It definitely doesn't show up on the darker colours, but there are plenty of light colours to choose from, and I can see myself using it for my social media planning. And although I'm not really one for drawing, I can see myself playing around and getting creative, almost like using it as you would washi tape. I like making little scenes in my planner, so I can draw things like the sea and put some little characters in it, something like that. I'm also assuming that this white pen can be used if you make a mistake in your planner. I do normally use whiteout or a gel pen, Uniball Signo. I may be wrong, this may not work, but let's see. Okay, I was wrong because it's actually smudged the ink. If that does happen, you do need to clean the nib because I've got black ink on it. I don't know if I needed to wait longer for it to dry, but I don't think I'm going to be waiting when I could be using whiteout. So I think you could do this if you did a couple of coats, but that was one thing I did expect it to do that. It hasn't really done particularly well. You'd probably be safe using the white paint pen to cover the lines in your planner at least. And you can see there's no bleed through on the Happy Planner planner paper either. So overall, I'm very happy with my pens, and I'm feeling excited about the prospect of using them in my planner and journals. With the 72 set, you get a good range of colours. The cap colour was sometimes a bit hit and miss. So for example, this one to me looks more like this colour than what it actually is, which is this one. But more often than not, when I picked up a pen without looking at the number and compared it to my charts, for example, this one looks like that, 25, I found that I was right, and this is 25. They felt super smooth to write in, lots of paint. I have no idea how long acrylic pens actually last. I suppose it depends on how much you use them. And I do understand that you need to use them rather than leave them for a long time, otherwise they can dry out. I'd love to hear your experience with acrylic markers in the comments. Do you have this particular set, or is there another set you recommend? How do you store yours? And do you have any tips for me as a beginner? I hope you found this video useful. And if you're looking for an alternative to zebra mild liners for drawing lines in your planner or highlighting, then you might want to check out this video here where I review a set of Mr. Pen pens, which I use a lot in my journals. Hope you have a good week. Take care and bye for now.